For the Right to Reason podcast, I am Roderick Stanley. We are talking to Edward Steller about his new book, National Lottery. The implications of this book and the conversation we are about to have is very important.
It's the Right to Reason podcast.
You know what you remind me of is, remember Good Will Hunting? When Robin Williams is telling Matt Damon, you can tell me, if I asked you about love, you'd probably quote some sonnet from Shakespeare, but you haven't loved like I've loved or something. And here I am telling you what's going on in Portland that I've heard about. And you're like describing what the smell of tear gas was, like you were there. And
But the deal, Robert, is you're explaining it correctly. For some reason, you have the ability to look at something, analyze it, sort out this and that, and come back with it. Where other people, I just get back from the place and they start telling me what I see. Oh my God, did you see?
This episode of the Right to Reason podcast is brought to you by our patrons and contributors like me. We have all recognized the value of the unrestrained marketplace of ideas and have decided to make a difference. You can make a difference too. Contribute at patreon.com/right and learn more about your right to reason at therighttoreason.com. Your activism is appreciated.
Edward Steller, how are you, sir?
Doing fantastic, Robert. Thanks for having me on here.
I'm happy to talk to you. I'm intrigued about this book. It's blowing up right now. Anybody can find it on Amazon, or if you want to, just click the link in today's show notes. National Lottery, but it's about more than just the lottery. Is that correct?
Well, what happens in the book is we have a young lady living a secular life in Oregon. Everything's going wonderful. One day she comes home and the church people are knocking on the door, talking to her mother. She inquires about it. Her mother says, well, it's just a couple ladies selling religion. She shuffles them off. Eventually, Maria, the main character, she comes home and notices these women, being persistent, coming back. One day she walks in and they're on their knees on the floor praying. And from that moment, her life kind of changes. She gets in trouble. She finds a boyfriend, and one thing leads to another. Next thing you know, she's in counseling, standing in front of the youth counselor at the church. And things don't go very well from there. That's one side of the story. The other side of the story is the political aspect. We have a presidential candidate that's failing at his attempt. His poll numbers are down. And one of his advisors suggests we'll have a national lottery. We'll sell it as a way to pay off the debt. And of course, it's an absurd idea. But the premise is get people to stop arguing and bickering and talking about all the normal issues and shift the focus. And it actually works for a while. Pretty soon, though, the opposition party finds ways to get around it. His poll numbers are dropping again. And so they come up with this idea to have this national celebration. Whoever wins the lottery is a national hero. They go on to Washington, D.C., all kinds of crazy stuff evolves from there. So you have these two stories intermixing, and eventually it all comes together.
Sounds like a movie. I could totally see that in a movie. That's so cool.
What everybody says that reads the book. They say this has to be made into a movie.
Your negative take on religion that I'm picking up here is that you're from your own personal experience. Do you actually feel negatively toward it, or would you say just you were using it more as a story for the book, but you have a nice close personal relationship with your Savior, perhaps?
No, as a child, I remember my mother taking me into Sunday school when everything was wonderful, and then all of a sudden they started telling me the biblical stories, and I've always been kind of a scientist, and I'd raise my hand and question the Sunday school teacher, and before too long, I was the kid that was getting kicked out of Sunday school class.
Really? They would kick you out for asking questions?
No, they didn't kick me out, but I got a little slack for instead of drawing pictures of Jesus, I was drawing, stick figures and airplanes bombing people.
Yeah. Were they dirty Jesus pictures?
No, of course not. I'm not negative on religion and stuff, but
I drew dicks.
Our character Maria, she's kind of based on some people I've known and the experiences I've heard from people. I never realized that, I don't know what you call it, maybe religious abuse or where these kids actually go through trauma in their lives because of their experiences.
Yeah, and speaking of, while we're on the topic, I'd recommend everybody check out Janice Selby's conference on religious trauma, CORT. You can find that online at, I think it's I think it's conference on religious trauma, either .com or .org. But anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of that out there. I don't know that I would say I was traumatized myself. When I hear some of these stories of kids, like a gay kid getting kicked out of the house because their parents think, homosexuality is a sin against God. And I hear stories like that and I think, I didn't go through anything that bad. But I would say just the idea that I was broken, that I wasn't, I was born bad and I needed God to fix me. It didn't have the humbling effect that it sounds like it could, because, there is a positive to that, to say, hey, we're all bad in our own way and we all need to be humble to correcting our own mistakes and learning from one another, and the wisdom from the people that came before us, like all that. I would say that, there's value to that, but with mainstream religion and especially fundamentalism, it kind of takes it, for at least in my experience and a lot of others, it takes it a step further, where you're afraid of hell. You're obsessed with this torture scenario of Christ and how he was like God who came here as God and then killed himself for us because of something that happened in a magical garden. It's just the whole thing just keeps expanding. I would say that's traumatizing in a way. Yeah,
Robert, I wish I would have met up with you a little earlier. I would have loved to have interviewed you and talked to you about your take on religion and stuff. A lot of people that I've talked to when I was researching the book was a little different. One of the gals, she was homosexual, and her parents just couldn't come to grasp with it. It's to a point now where the family's just destroyed over it. She'll make internet posts, and her friends will say her parents are monsters. Mm-hmm. And another gal, she was Jehovah's Witness, and they just turned their back and they walked out and they shunned her. And I wasn't, I don't know what you would say, naive. I didn't know exactly that all this stuff went on, and the thought of a family just completely turning their back on their child. I mean, it was just to me, it was just crazy or unacceptable. And and out of that, I didn't go on to it a whole lot in the book, but it was the basis for the character Maria that's in the book. She just can't accept her parents' religion. She has a problem. She goes to them, and of course, they think the way to solve it is the church. Mm-hmm. Very bad encounter with the church youth counselor.
My sister was actually kicked out of the house. She lied about some trip, like to go to look at a college or something, but she actually went and just slept with some guy. she just wanted some dick. It's not that bad, but anyway, it was not cool with my preacher father. Yeah, she ended up getting the boot.
Did you say you had a preacher father?
Yeah. He was a pastor from when I was elementary school through after I had moved out of the house and started my own life. I didn't get kicked out though, but it was messed up because I wanted to be a preacher. I went to Bob Jones University to be a preacher like he was, and like my older brother was. So I was just kind of following suit there, and I had doubts, but not big enough doubts. Like I wondered about the flood and how that didn't really align with science, or creationism versus evolution, or the idea that you could have like a subconscious, or you could have motives that might make you want to act a certain way, or mental illness or what have you. And then I wondered, well, how can God judge somebody's decisions that they make if their decisions are motivated by other things? And the whole concept of free will, like I had doubts about all those kind of things, but then I went to Bible school, and it was right at 9/11. I remember I was in this van because to make money, I'd do deliveries for like the campus snack shop, and I'm in this van, and I'm listening to "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor." How jacked up is that, right? I mean, you don't want to laugh at it because it's so horrible, but it's true. But anyway, it's "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor," and they interrupt the song and say a plane just hit the towers. So I park the van right near the snack shop and go in, because the only TV on campus, only one TV on campus. You can't have TVs. It's a very fundamentalist, very strict school. And that's where the TV was. I run in there, and right about right after I get into the snack shop and look at the TV up in the top corner of the snack shop, the second plane hits. And I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. We weren't even aware that it was terrorism at that point. We all started figuring it out, right? You remember that? Yeah. But like at that moment, you're like, wow, what a crazy coincidence, And then it was that night, the dean of students came over the intercom and said, this is God's judgment on New York because New York is full of sin. And I was already having some issues. And at that point, I was like, fuck this. I'm out. I couldn't do it.
No, I hear you. You know what's fascinating listening to you is I've had some comments and I've had the opportunity to talk to people. And it seems like people that have really studied the religion. One of my friends, he's in the same situation you were. His father actually operates a very large church. And he went to the Bible school and that. And it seems like when something like that happens, all of a sudden it changes. And I've noticed people like my friend and like a couple other people in the same situation. It seems like once it happens to them, there's no going back. They seem like they're the strongest opponents against organized religion and what's kind of happening now with the evangelical movement. And listening to you talk, it's almost like it's fascinating that it makes me question what is it that causes these people that are so connected and so well versed in the Bible and theology, all of a sudden change so abruptly, and then they're the ones that can never go back. It seems like person that's never experienced religion can become religious, but a person that's well versed and into it, once they fall out of it, they never seem to want to be able to go back. And I'm sure there's instances where they are, but that's just my experiences. I'm wondering how you feel about that.
I don't know. I get what you're saying. Yeah, I see that a lot. People that really get immersed in it, and if those people leave, they're done. For sure. I tried to do like Taoism and a little Buddhism stuff after I gave up on Christianity, but it wasn't long before I was like, I'm starting to see some similar flaws here, and this belief in something kind of supernatural or beyond us. That's when I went full atheist. But I wonder if it's like, people always say, it's not a religion, it's a relationship with God, and I wonder if it's kind of like a relationship in the sense of you go through a really, really bad divorce, let's say, and you might remarry or you might date after that, but are you ever going to throw your heart into a marriage again as strongly as you did that first time? Are you going to be that vulnerable again? I don't know. I wouldn't think so. I think even if you found love again,
that's interesting.
You probably would just keep a little bit of your heart to yourself that time, because you'd say, I know what it can do if I completely put my faith in this person. Maybe that's what's happening with people's experiences with their idea of God. Is they say, I'm just not going to give my heart to somebody again.
Right. And in the book, other controversial issues were relating to like immigration. There's a scene in the book where Maria's little girl, she ends up, I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but she ends up kidnapped.
Spoilers.
She's in Mexico, and she's trying to get back across the border. So during the time when Trump was first elected, he said that millions and millions of immigrants were just flocking to the border and everything. And I bought a plane ticket and I flew down there. I decided to research it.
No way.
Man, I was looking for Woodstock, the Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
And I found small areas, where the immigrants, massed, but nothing like what I was being told. It was almost like, what the hell happened here? I'm in the wrong place or something. Finally, I was able to find the main immigration camp. They'd moved it from the beach over to a venue that used to be used as a place where they had concerts. Wasn't allowed in. They only let people in with press passes and well-connected people. So I did that old deal where I went to one guard and said the guard over there said that it was okay. I went back to the other one, and eventually I finagled my way inside. I was able to surrender my passport for a 40-minute pass to get into this camp. And I walked around, and these children, most of the parents were working. I didn't see a bunch of murderers and rapists around. And, I went with Hot Wheels and socks to hand out to the kids. And they were happy to receive them. And then the people at UNICEF, they were incredible. Some of these gals, they formed little kindergartens, and they were helping the children. But there was one little boy, you see all these kids playing with their little Hot Wheel cars and stuff. I go to hand him one, and he shakes his head no. And he's just solemn. Yeah, cute kid. He doesn't want the Hot Wheel. So in my best Spanish, I ask him, what do you want? He reaches over and he hugs my leg and looks up to me, and he just points out like he just wants to get out of there. And man, it just broke my heart, and he's kind of, one of the kids in the book that I've kind of turned into one of the characters, and it just, like I said, I don't want to give away too much of the book for people that are interested in reading it, but it's just kind of a subject that kind of got some people a little upset. They are, they're kind of anti-immigrant, and the idea of, it's probably in Texas, you'll probably experience that quite a bit.
Oh, sure.
But anyway, I've gone on about that.
No, I've enjoyed listening. My silence is actually the story. Just it hit me, man. That's crazy. The kid just hugged your leg and wanted out. He didn't.
Yeah.
That's oof. Is that a common thing you do as an author? Is researching characters by going and traveling and studying other people's lives?
Well, I love to travel. I've been to all the 50 states. I've been to a lot of countries. And you meet characters along the way and stuff. This particular book is like just being in Tijuana. Like one time I was leaving early. If you've ever been to Tijuana, you want to get across the border before it gets too late because you get a whole lot of people crossing. And as I was approaching the border one day, I do the crossing on foot. All of a sudden, a little girl comes out, about 14, with a couple little brothers and sisters, and they start begging money and stuff. And from what I could ascertain, is they lived in the bushes, and tried to survive. And then at night, they would come out and they'd beg money. And that was like that 14-year-old girl that was trying to support her brothers and sisters through begging. She was another one of the characters that I found. And the sad part is the girl, she was Guatemalan. Somehow she got separated from her parents, I'm assuming. And there was just no hope for her. I gave them some money and stuff, and that's not, maybe it gets them a meal, gets them by. But then I think of my own granddaughter, that's, growing up, and she's got every opportunity in the world here. And I see this little girl just standing there in the middle of the night, begging money, hiding in the bushes, trying to keep from getting caught. I don't know what they'd do. I don't even think they would do anything. They'd probably just let her wander around. And that broke my heart as well. And I just think to myself, you've got these people that are, into religion and so godly and stuff, but they don't seem to. I mean, I was looking around. Where's the church? Where's the people helping these kids? And I'm sure it happens, but I didn't see it. And
yeah, it seems like an irony that a lot of the same people that seem to be anti-immigration brag about what their mission trips are doing. Like not that all missionaries are just trying to negotiate a sandwich to you as long as you read their Bible first or something like that. You know what I mean? Like they're holding your lunch hostage or something. It's not like that. I'm sure that certainly occurs, but a lot of these folks are doing what they think is the right thing. But at the same time, these churches will brag about that while simultaneously being anti-immigrant. What are your takes on immigration policy exactly, Ed? Or do you think we should have an open border?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't think that's possible.
Not that far, yeah.
But then sometimes when I travel, I almost would prefer to have some people from European countries. I've been to Poland. I mean, I'd rather have them maybe as a member of one of our states than maybe Alabama or something. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love the people of Alabama. I don't want to anybody mad at me, but the people are just people. And let's say that our country was split in half and the border was Texas, Alabama, that area there. And would that be beneficial to our country to not have the trade, not have the ability for the, for the people to interact? I'm not, like I said, if I said I was for open borders, I may never sell a book again. People are, they're so against that. But in my mind, people are people. And we need workers right now. We need people to come across. But I think there has to be a process.
I was talking to
How about you, Robert? Open borders?
No, I don't think that's pragmatic. I'd like to see something more like, we've done it before. Ellis Island. That was a very similar situation, and we did it successfully because we did it with the right intention. The intention was, these people are coming here. Let's welcome them as Americans. Still, we dealt with racism at the time. There were we didn't like the Italians. We didn't like the Irish. We didn't like this. We didn't like that. But it still worked because we had the right motive. And the motive I feel like we have now, it isn't so much let's help these people as it is let's help the people that are employing them. Because pre-70s, they were arresting employers for hiring illegal immigrants. But not anymore. They stopped doing that and they started arresting the immigrant. It's kind of like like arresting the homeless guy. No,
I know exactly what you're saying.
It's a totally wrong concept that we have now. We could clearly solve this dilemma. We've solved bigger ones before, and like you pointed out, this isn't even that big of a problem. Whenever they say, we've got caravans of Guatemalans coming in here, and then you go and see for yourself what a beautiful story. But you go and see for yourself, and it's not that at all. It's these small groups.
You seem pretty well educated on the subject. I was wondering, do you feel as though there's a racial motivation nowadays as compared to maybe when the Germans were coming over, after the potato famine, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we would both agree there is. I think it's more a useful tactic politically, because it's something that you can easily identify, like how you had pointed out, or you kind of alluded to, Trump saying they're rapists, they're murderers. It's definitely an easy thing to point to. But if we were all the same color, I think we'd still be having the same issues. We just segregate in a different way because we're so xenophobic. I think just race is an easy one for our brains to do. Yeah. It's an easy pit for us to fall in.
And plus, the media doesn't help. Like me saying that Trump said they're racists and murderers. I don't even know if he actually said that. It's been said, I don't know if I've actually heard the quotes or him standing up there, but, different media and just talking to people secondhand, do you remember when Trump? So, a lot of stuff is built up by the media. It's like one of the issues I wanted to address in the book is just trying to get people to come together. I don't understand why old cousin so-and-so is now my enemy or something because I didn't kind of take to the idea of Trump and stuff, or, by them having this national lottery, naively, they thought that it would work. Everybody would stop talking about abortion and, and all those issues and suddenly come together. And in the book, for a while, it actually does. But then, of course, everything blows up. And an interesting aspect about the book is towards the end, it's a total riot. The country's in a mess. I finished writing the book and publishing it in December. And after people read it, they're like, what the heck? Did you know what was going to happen?
Oh, wow.
After the election and this and that. So it got a lot of interest on that part.
That's kind of, it was like a foreshadowing of what was to come. Do you explain to me this national lottery thing? How does it work in the book where they're thinking that this will solve a lot of our political divide?
As they're getting closer to election, they're losing in the polls, they're losing on the the gun issue or whatever, all the things they are, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, they start running commercials and everything, national lottery, it's on the way. All of a sudden, because the average, you have your voters that have been to college, well-versed, but a lot of the voters nowadays are just, normal Joe. They go into work, they sit around by the coffee pot, and they talk politics, and somebody might say, well, the Republicans are trying to destroy the unions, and somebody might say, well, the Democrats are trying to take the guns, and then they all end up arguing about it. But the lottery thing, when they sit around and talk about that, it's like, well, shoot, what would you do, Joe, if you won $10 million? And at first it has everybody excited. It completely catches the opponents off guard, and the poll numbers increase. But of course, as with any issue, it diminishes over time. So really close to the election, they come in and they just hype it up. You win this election, you're going to go to a massive party at the White House. You might be partying with Bruce Springsteen. You might be meeting your favorite author, and all of a sudden everybody's into this, But then the problem that they encounter is, well, this is it. I'm getting too ahead of myself. I don't like I said, I don't want to give the book away, and ruin it for the
Who dies at the end? Just tell us that. Who dies?
But that's the concept. Do you think there is any issue in America right now that would work to bring people together? You have to realize how polarized things are.
Yeah, I don't know. I see where you're coming from. Like, some kind of big distraction could at least get us to stop focusing on the negativity and the things that divide us. And we all like remember how united we were, kind of full circle right after 9/11. Like it seemed,
I know, it was amazing.
Yeah, like it broke everything down to just one simple thing, like we are Americans and we are under attack. And it, just like you said with the media and Trump, it didn't take long before they cashed in on that. I remember seeing they were selling like parachute backpacks that you could wear to the office in case your building is hit by an airplane and you have to jump out of the window. Just most ridiculous. Like it was men in suits with the parachute, and like it was like a stylish parachute that you could wear while in a meeting. It was like it got crazy. It got absolutely crazy. Here we are again. It seems like it calmed down a little bit after the election, though. After this recent one, don't you think? It was really ramping up. I didn't know what was going to happen.
That was a fascinating concept, the parachute thing. In my mind, I'm laughing, but then God, I have images of those people falling out of the buildings. It's just like any good idea, it's after the fact,
Yeah, I wonder if
yeah.
if Biden is kind of like this reality's version of your book's reality's lottery. You know what I mean? Where
Right.
things really aren't all that different, in my opinion, from when Trump was president and now that Biden's president. I think he's handling the coronavirus much more mature, in a much more mature way, and I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see us back in the Paris Climate Agreement. I'm glad to see that we're trying to fix the Iran nuclear deal that we bailed out of. There's certain things, and you and I may agree or disagree on some of these points, but there's things that I'm glad that he's doing. But ultimately, when it comes to the military-industrial complex, the lack of labor rights, way the economy is built up for the top 1% and not for the majority of us, the dwindling middle class, immigration itself, we still have kids in cages. Speaking of that,
No, and that's true. I think I'm pretty much on your side on most of those issues. But the thing that's fascinating is the people that would benefit the most by a lot of those policies are the ones that seem to reject them the most. Like a young man. You're a young man in your 30s, but a lot of young men, it's like global warming isn't real, or they're the ones that I'm an older guy. I'm pushing 70 here pretty soon, but it seems like they're the ones that are going to have to deal with all this stuff. It's
right.
like
Speaking of that, is this a crazy time? You're saying you're in your 70s, so you go back. I'm
in my 60s, pushing 70.
Okay. You were a kid in the 50s. Does that sound about right? Okay. So you saw the end of, I guess the aftermath of ending segregation. You got to see Kennedy being shot. You saw the moon landing. You went through the Cold War. Maybe early teens.
You're hitting all those exactly right. You have your history down.
I'm just trying to think. But you've seen a lot. Is it really that crazy right now?
But anyway, I really understand what you're saying. Everybody's saying these are kind of crazy times, but I remember the Watts riots in L.A. flipping on the TV set. One of my buddies jumps up, "Hey, there's my dad," and he's running down the road with people chasing him.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think you made your point really well on that. Are these really the crazy times? And I think that you're probably really correct in your assumption that there's been a lot crazier things happening. But then when you think about it, the attempted overthrow of our government. Let's say that would have went bad. Let's say those people had guns. They actually lynched Pence, if that's what they were trying to do. Would we have something in place that would have kept our country from going down? And there'd be half the population that would be fine. Okay, we have a dictatorship, but it's Trump, and we love the guy, and he's almost like our Jesus figure, and he knows what's best for the country, and maybe they'd be okay with the process. I can't see some of the people I know just saying, "Oh no, let's go in there and make sure Trump was removed after the insurrection."
Yeah, what would have happened if it would have been successful?
Yeah, that's almost a topic for a whole new book.
Getting ideas. With the Trump thing, I've pulled away from my family a little bit. I would say out of everybody in my family, not like my wife and kids. I'm leaving my wife and kids because of Trump. But no, but like my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister. I think it'd be fair to say I probably, out of everybody in our family, I was the one that was reaching out the most to everybody regularly. Hey, how you doing? Random phone calls, what have you. And I've pulled away after the Trump thing. Not because I don't like them, not because they're not my family or anything. I just saw 4 years of this. Like they're all Trump lovers, right? And it was just this arrogant kind of bitterness. It was weird. It was like they constantly felt like they were under attack, but were bragging that they won, bragging that they're in power, but also constantly saying, you guys are commies, you guys are Antifa, you guys are ruining America. It's like they took the worst of both worlds and mixed it together.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I have an interesting story about Antifa during the Black Lives Movement that was happening in Portland. It was getting, you'd flip on the news. I lived in kind of a rural community, Douglas County, and people would meet up at the little brewery, and it's like, oh my God, Antifa, they're taking over, and it was crazy. And so me, I have to hop in the car. I drove down there, and I was shocked. The whole area was it was a park, and it was no bigger than maybe the park we have in Roseburg. But the way they'd film it and everything, it made it look like there was thousands of people. And, and during the initial riot after George Floyd had his, neck, his hair cut off, there was a riot and it was horrible, but the aftermath, this was like 6 months afterwards. It's when Trump said he was going to send in the guys in black, and when he said that, it made Portland kind of explode. All of a sudden, it stirred the pot. But anyway, I went down there. My goal was to find Antifa. Okay, I'm going to see where their headquarters are. See what the process. I wasn't going to sign up. I was going to play the game like I do when I go into other situations. And I started asking around, and these people were literally laughing at me. They're like saying Antifa means anti-fascist. They look at me like, "Aren't you Antifa?" And I go, "Well, what are you talking about?" I'm looking for the guy with the kid with the skateboard, and
yeah.
And I go, "Where do they meet up at?" It was just like a joke, and finally I got it. These guys aren't out there, and they aren't doing all this crazy. I'm sure there's some kind of movement or some kind of maybe internet thing, but there wasn't an organized group or a building I could go to in the city of Portland where these people were hanging out. And then when I got back, I go in, have a beer with my buddies, and, and they're concerned about Antifa. They're coming. And then one night when things were getting bad, there was a rumor that a bunch of guys from the area there in Douglas County, they all got together and they got their ARs and they've been practicing in the woods. And they heard that Antifa was coming. They were in Medford heading down towards Roseburg. And these guys were going to meet up with them, and they were going to defend, or they were going to go to the local government center and defend our country and stuff. And it turned out it was a rumor. There was no Antifa coming. And but it's like I go back and I tell them the story. I couldn't find Antifa. I don't even think it exists the way that they're doing it. And they looked at me like I was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I've got actually, I was going to say I got a buddy. One of the patrons of this podcast identifies as Antifa, and he lives right in that Portland area. He said it's just one block. He said everywhere looks normal. People are going to work throughout the day. Everything's fine. You go to this one block. There's all the camera crews there. There's everybody that's been drinking and doing drugs or whatever, making most of the mess of it, But the people that are actually there showing up for the protest on one side, the cops and all their riot gear on the other side. And he said that at first it was Black Lives Matter, and then in front of Black Lives Matter, it was, I think, what was it called? He's going to be mad at me that I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was like Moms or something like that. I want to say it's like
Mothers Against, yeah. I remember those. I remember seeing members talking about those gals.
Mothers Against Racism, MAR.
Yeah,
Mothers for Black Lives Matter.
But they were on the news. And
Black
they were
Lives
out there with their
Mom.
signs and stuff.
Anyway, but yeah, they would get there. They would be in front, joining arms. The cops would tear gas them. So then a lot of like the husbands and friends of the mom group, right? They come over and they've got leaf blowers and hockey sticks that they would knock
seen
the
those guys too.
Oh wow,
so fun.
Yeah, okay, and it's nuts, and that was that time, right, when Trump issued.
Right, that's exactly.
Who was it? Was it Blackwater agents? I want to say it was Blackwater agents. It wasn't. It wasn't military.
I've never seen them. I think they ended up. Well, actually, from what I gathered, they were in the Hilton Hotel, and they decided to keep them in there. And one day, one night, all the people found out they're at the Hilton Hotel, and they all marched. They had that hotel like surrounded. And I was thinking, man, if those guys would have been out there, they would have came out. It would have been just a mess. But I think the mayor of Portland, filed some kind of injunction, keep them from going, from being present, and it stopped probably a terrible situation. But yeah, it was just stirring the pot, bringing those guys down there.
That was my second most concerned moment with Trump. Was
a
lot of people got really worried whenever he was messing with Kim Jong-un, like picking at him. I wasn't so worried about it because I don't think Un's going to do anything or that he even could. But when my first one was how do you say it? Soleimani.
Yeah.
When he bombed that guy, it's not like I cared about the guy, of course, but I was just worried like, well, this is a bold move. I don't need any new wars, But the one that got me the most was when he fired Mark Esper. I think his name was Esper, Secretary of Defense, who says, "Hey, you can't send paramilitary to secretly arrest people rioting or protesting. You can't do it." All he did was speak out, and Trump goes, "You're fired." That's the one I point out when people say something like, oh, come on, what, Trump's a fascist? And I'm like, well, I get it. That's a very strong word. He's not Mussolini. I know, but that's a fascist-y thing to do. That's fascistic. You could at least agree with that, and I'll say that to him. And most everybody, even if they're Trump supporters and they're not a complete loons, most people look at that one and go, yeah, that was scary. That's weird. Or they didn't even know it happened. Most of the Trump supporters don't even know that happened.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing: those leaf blowers don't work against the tear gas.
Oh, really?
It was really funny. You go down there, and it's almost like you go to the park, and they had it set up where free food for anybody. The homeless people, they started living in the park. They were giving out free ribs, food, water, and it was actually a real peaceful event. But what happened is when it got dark, everybody would come down to the park, and they'd meet, and they'd be bored until about midnight. And then at midnight, they had a fence that went around the government building there. At midnight, some guys would go over there with their skateboards or whatever, and they'd start banging on the fence and making commotion. And then some other guys would take bottle rockets, start shooting them up. And then when that happened, then all of a sudden the National Guard would come out, who was ever protecting the building, and everybody would start booing and going crazy. And then they'd shoot off the tear gas. And man, I tell you, I turned around, headed out of there. You can't fight that stuff. It's powerful. But anyway, and then everybody goes home and it's over, and then they repeat the same procedure the next night. It was almost like
wow, you were right there in it. It was
scripted, just people got out of the house. You'd see people pushing their kids around the strollers. You'd see girlfriends meeting up, and there'd be people giving their speeches with their megaphones, and they'd be doing their Black Lives Matter stuff. But it's funny. It was almost like scripted. They'd come there, they'd meet, they'd wait till midnight. People would start rattling the fence. People, the other side would come out. They'd get booed. They'd shoot the tear gas, and everybody'd take off. But it wasn't. I don't know. Being a young man, I hope you get a chance to experience some of these things I've done in life. It's just so fun to, I've lived out, or not lived, but I spent the night out on the streets in Los Angeles area with homeless people, dressed all down, walked around with them, went into Mexicali and pretend I was a German student, and I'd lost my passport, and I'd been partying, and I was drunk, and I couldn't get back across the border, and I wanted God, this guy I found, he was like the weirdest looking convict guy I could find. I asked him if he'd help me across the border. I have so many experiences.
Wow.
And the world is so massive, so many cool things going on in other countries. And
do you know what you remind me of is remember Good Will Hunting? When Robin Williams is telling Matt Damon, you can tell me, if I asked you about love, you'd probably quote some sonnet from Shakespeare, but you haven't loved like I've loved or something. And here I am telling you what's going on in Portland that I've heard about. And you're like describing what the smell of tear gas was, like you were there. And
But the deal, Robert, is you're explaining it correctly. For some reason, you have the ability to look at something, analyze it, sort out this and that, and come back with it. Where other people, I just get back from the place and they start telling me what I see. Oh my God, did you see? And I'm like, wait a minute.
They're telling you about it. Yeah. That's
I
crazy.
See a lot of potential for you. You seem to have your stuff together here.
Oh, thanks for saying that. That threw me off. I'll have to edit. That was a nice thing of you to say. Edward Steller, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I've learned a lot. I want to ask you more about all these experiences and just your journey you've gone through. But just to wrap up, I want everybody check out National Lottery. Link in the show notes. I'd recommend you look at that because it's going to be something people are talking about. It's doing quite well. I highly recommend it. Edward Steller, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Robert.
Thank you to Edward. Thank you to Dave Blair at DaveBlairMusic.com. Thank you to Feedspot.com for promoting the Right to Reason to the top 10 atheist podcasts. Thank you to our patrons, Jason Parker, Freethinker215, Alan Marks, Philip Spawn, Bernard Lamberell, Enema Man, Larry Wilson, and our top supporter, Rob Montgomery. There you are, buddy. You can support this broadcast at patreon.com/right and learn more at therighttoreason.com. Next week, we're talking to atheist turned Muslim Justin Downing and how the fuck that could happen. Between now and then, remember that you have the right to reason.
This Reason Podcast.